On this week's Shoot the Messenger, Black Britain decides how we could determine who wins the election for London Mayor. That's if we turn out. Hello, I'm Henry Bonsu, and this is Shoot the Messenger, an hour of people, politics and popular culture. Coming up on today's show, Black Britain decides. The mayoral candidates say, we want the black vote. But what's the price they're prepared to pay? Does this vote even exist? Not according to a radical film on why so many black people still don't exercise their democratic right. Also today, it's the most sensitive issue in UK policing, and it's now the subject of a new hard-hitting play. We're joined by the director and actors from Stop Search. And with me to review the papers and discuss some of these issues are two people who might well run for mayor themselves one day, if not in London, then perhaps Bridgetown or Lagos. Let's give a warm welcome to Bieneosa Ebite from Bright Star Public Relations and the filmmaker Rashid Nix. You don't mind me introducing you in that way? You ever considered running for office at all?
Who knows what will happen in the future?
Rashid, I'm sure you have, haven't you?
Yes, ex-South Bank Student Union president back in the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've both been busy in the last week or so, you know, sir. I know you run a PR company, but you've also been igniting the case for diversity and inclusion in public relations. This is something that is of great concern to people like me who work in broadcasting, but also you, because of course you're on the PR side of things.
Yes, that's right. Ignite was set up in 2009, and as you probably know, the industry is very white and middle class. And really, we feel that as an industry that's charged with communicating with a diverse set of audiences, both in the UK and abroad, the industry should really be representative of those diverse publics. So Ignite was basically set up to help promote the case for greater diversity in PR, and we launched our manifesto this week.
And what does the manifesto say?
Well, the manifesto really is all about taking the conversation about diversity into action. We've noticed that a lot of industry players are talking about diversity, but no one's actually taking tangible steps to make a long-lasting change. So this manifesto, it's a very slim document, and it's really the foundation steps to say to people, it's not rocket science, it can be very simple, and really the manifesto is a guide for agencies and HR teams to really start thinking and taking, importantly, those tangible steps.
Don't get me started being us on those agencies. Believe me, they're the bane of my life. We're going to move on though. The front pages are in, so let's see what they're going with. Some good news on the front of the Sunday Express, claiming the slump in the euro means there's no better time for Brits to go abroad. Yes, Independent on Sunday features its own happy list of 100 people who make British life better, including the Paralympian George Fletcher. The Mail on Sunday claims it has proof MI5 allegedly betrayed Libyan dissidents to Colonel Gaddafi's spies through a sting in London. The Sunday Telegraph says Dr. John Sentamu is the victim of naked racism from critics who don't want him to become the next Archbishop of Canterbury. The Sunday Times has done a new investigation into female genital mutilation, claiming up to 100,000 women in Britain have gone through it. And The Observer says the Health Secretary is backing a proposal to pay NHS staff less if they work in poorer parts of the country. Let's see what you make of some of those stories, and the inside page is starting off with you, Bieneosa. You're looking at the Sunday Times story, is it? That's
right. So the Sunday Times did an undercover investigation whereby they were looking at female genital mutilation in the UK. And interestingly, it's very disturbing. They found 3 men, a doctor, a dentist, an alternative medical practitioner, who were basically willing to carry out this horrible procedure. There is the Female Genital Mutilation Act of 2003, which makes it an offence to actually carry out the procedure. And it's very disturbing that these 3 men are willing to carry out this procedure from, I think it's £600. But interesting, Forward, who is the organisation that actually looks into this area specifically.
Yeah, they've been on this programme. Really strong campaigners on this issue.
I mean, they're estimating that 100,000 women in the UK have actually undergone this procedure here in the UK. And despite the fact that it is illegal, it's disturbing actually when you read this report. It actually highlights that even though it's a very, you know, so many women have undergone this procedure, that it's not actually on the curriculum for medical schools, for social workers, or even teachers.
So you mean to actually look out for it?
Exactly,
Signs,
to check for the signs of this. It's not on their agenda.
I'm just wondering why that might be, Rashid. I mean, people often talk about absolute human rights or cultural relativism, i.e. my culture isn't better than your culture, so if you're African and you want to do this to your young girls, then you should be allowed to do it. Or people being sensitive about intruding for fear of being called racist.
I mean, I would say in relation to this story, because I'm not really an expert in this field at all, but the figure, like what you just quoted, was it 100,000?
100,000.
I mean, that's surprisingly high, and to think that, you know, in the UK that this is taking place, and, you know, these doctors and you said dentists as well.
Dentists,
I mean, that's kind of makes the mind boggle.
Well, it does, because I mean, previously the concern was about families who would take their children to Somalia or to Gambia or Senegal or whatever and have the procedure done there, then bring them back to the UK. But what this paper is saying is actually happening in Britain.
Here in Britain, I mean, that still happens with the holidays where people are taken abroad on the holiday to Somalia and the procedure happens there. But it's actually happened here. And actually something very disturbing is that the Met have received 166 reports of FGM since 2008, but not one conviction.
Well, I mean, they're going to have to shift their priorities, otherwise people will say, well, had it been happening to white girls, European girls, there'd be a huge reaction. It's happening to African girls. Well, Sunday Times cares, maybe nobody else does, apart from Forward. Looking at the next story, the Archbishop of Canterbury, well, who is he going to be? Is it going to be Norwich? Is it going to be somebody nice in English? Or will the African, currently the Archbishop of York, get it? According to the Telegraph.
Well, yeah, this story is it's an interesting one. It's a very interesting one. The Archbishop of York, Dr. John Sentamu, very high-profile individual. You know, I remember seeing him back in 2000 at the Lawrence Inquiries. You know, one of the people there, and he struck me as being a person who had convictions.
Yes.
You know, not convictions in the criminal sense.
No,
I know that black people get twisted like that. I just think that, you know, he seemed to be a man of his word.
Yeah.
And as much as I don't agree with some of the young man's politics, you got to say, well, this guy actually believes what he's about, and, you know, he's pursuing his path.
Can you see? Could you see him as an Archbishop of Canterbury, the first African?
I'm going to come out and be honest.
Yeah.
And this being England, and England being what it is, no, I couldn't see it happening. As much as the good doctor, reverend, ex-barrister, man of the cloth, goes out, is very outspoken. You know, his verbal attacks on Mugabe and certain you know, countries in Africa, where, you know, that if perhaps a white reverend had said that, we could misconstrue the words to mean something else. To know that you've got an African man representing the Church of England making these attacks upon leaders in Africa about their practices, as much as he's gone out of his way to show he's actually, look, I'm with you guys. He doesn't seem to understand the nature of what it is he's dealing with.
Well, the core of this particular story in the Sunday Telegraph appears to be his Africanness that's upsetting some of the conservative bishops in the Church of England.
Well, that's my point. He doesn't seem to realise. He thinks that because he's a man of the cloth, dressing in white, and he's the Archbishop of, you know, York, and he's doing his stuff, and he's showing the Brits that he's as much as part of this organisation as the rest of them, he doesn't seem to realise that actually you're not part of the club.
Bieneosa, is that the problem, really, that the Anglican Communion, the Church of England, has a particular brand, and as high as he's risen, Dr. Sentamu is not part of that brand. They don't want it to change that much.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because obviously when you look at where the growth of the church is coming from, it's coming from African countries, it's coming from Latin America. So it's almost preposterous to think that someone that is, you know, in a position such as he is, that cannot rise through the ranks. But unfortunately, I think the Church of England does have a branding issue. It really does, and it needs to be addressed. And these are really damaging allegations for the Church of England.
Very much are. Let's see what the Church actually says in response to it. Talking of people and brands, across the pond, we've got the French presidential election, round one today. François Hollande versus Nicolas Sarkozy. The latter Napoleon Bonaparte, they say, and the former, what, Mr. Pudding? What is this?
Mr. Pudding, Monsieur Flambe, which is a caramel pudding, he's been dubbed. It's really interesting to read this story and the contrast between himself and Nicolas Sarkozy, which is he's dubbed as President Bling Bling, by the way. Interesting contrast. Also with regards to the branding, I mean, the gentleman Francois Hollande, he had a background in politics, but he's very much the backroom boy, and he's really come into this position, if you like, by accident, because of course it was going to be the IMF.
Dominic
That's
Strauss
right,
Kahn,
that was actually going to be the representative of the Socialist Party. But it's interesting when you read the kind of descriptions that's used, you know, he used to be overweight and wear really dodgy suits, and now, you know, he's even called President Mitterrand's Labrador in the past. So a lot of kind of like negative connotations around his brand, but he's really, I guess, tried to transform himself. He's lost some weight. He's now wearing designer suits. And interestingly, in terms of his policy, I mean, he's saying that he will basically hit the rich and actually have a 75% tax earning on people that are earning more than £1 million.
Can you imagine anybody in a general election here threatening to tax anybody else at 75% and expecting to win? The French maybe are ready for no more bling bling. Let's move on to Mr. Mwamba, Fabrice Mwamba, who sold his story to The Sun on Sunday. This is a guy for whom we were all praying a few weeks ago, and the prayers were answered.
Well, this one here sold his story to the Sun. This is an interesting one.
You say that through gritted teeth, like you don't approve? Is that what are you saying?
Well, you know, being a person who, you know, who is dealing with the NCTJ, so we understand the journalistic ethics of a story, you know, and how much life can you give to a story? How much legs? How many pages can you write about? And I'm not, you know, I'm glad that the young man has survived and he's making a recovery.
Because this story went way beyond the people of Bolton, you know, he played the Bolton Wanderers. Everybody in the country, it would appear, apart from one or two internet trolls, were praying for him. You know, racist trolls were praying for him.
It was interesting that, you know, he got 5 pages, 1 to 5, you know, and it's all come back to the God issue, you know. I asked God to protect me and he didn't let me down.
Right.
And this kind of relates to the issue of the good reverend. Because the good reverend is a man of God. And it seems as if, you know, when we as black people take our religion, either be it Christianity or Islam, when we deal with it, we really deal with it. It's real.
No apology.
It's not virtual, it's not online, it's real, you know. And this young man here has really kind of put it on the line that, you know, I'm here because God. And that's it. His dad was saying that, I believe the dad was saying that he went to the bathroom, you know, the young man is here, you know, at death's door, the dad goes, says a quiet prayer to God, you know, and says, you know, as you have resurrected Lazarus, resurrect my son, very calmly. And people are like, you know, maybe the dad's in denial. And you just think, wow, you know, this is the kind of thing that we as people of colour can relate to, you know.
But I've even met agnostics who happen to be white, you know, English, who say maybe something really has happened because that collective force sometimes can move mountains.
Absolutely.
Maybe they can say Mwamba. He died, they say, for 78 minutes. And I personally will read this story, even if you say through gritty teeth that he sold it.
No. We're going to move on. I'm cool about it.
There's another very powerful story, the case of a young girl, 5 years old, now 6, called Tusha, who was shot and is now paralysed. And the 3 men who were involved in her shooting have been sentenced, haven't they? But
That's
she's now
right.
talked to a newspaper about it, 6 years old.
I know. It's actually really kind of, you know, when you read the story, it's very touching. When you read what Thusha actually has to say about her experience and also about the 3 men that have been found guilty. It's interesting. She said that they never apologised for hurting her. Initially, her parents didn't actually want her to kind of watch this on the news, and she thought that life actually meant life. So when the sentence was given of a life sentence, she thought that they would be in jail for the rest of their lives. So obviously for her as a little girl, she said, oh, you know, I thought that life would mean life.
There's the thing about young children, you know, they're open, they're honest, and they believe that what you say you mean.
Yeah.
You mean you say.
Exactly. I mean, she even says, though, that she's happy that they've been put in jail and that they won't be able to hurt other people which again, you know, the words of a little girl, it's very, very touching.
When you saw the faces, those three young men of African and Caribbean origin, what did you think? Because years ago, I mean, that would have really kind of wounded me. It doesn't wound me quite as much now because I suppose we see it all the time. Every day, youngsters getting convicted for doing all kinds of things, and I suppose it doesn't hit us in quite the same way. Is that how you feel? Or what?
I guess so. I mean, I've listened to various kind of like stories with regards to the backgrounds of some of the perpetrators and, you know, the social environment in which they lived, and therefore it contributed to what they've done. But ultimately, you know, that aside, this is a story about three men who shot a little girl.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Who actually tried to kill somebody else,
exactly, regardless of, you know, being black or white, this is what they've done. Yeah. This is the crime that they've committed. Brief response
from you, Rashid? When you saw those faces and you look at that little girl, her honesty.
Well, this happened not too far from where I live in Brixton, you know, and I know the shop because I actually go into the shop, you know, and it's just down the road. And what really got me about was that the young guys here, you know, teenagers, and what really struck me was that how have they gone down to such a level where there's somebody that they want to take out, and they're not even thinking about the fact that if I fire this gun and I miss this person, someone's going to get hit.
You say not even thinking, not even caring.
Not even caring. Like in terms of you know, how you engage your thought process, action, reaction, cause and effect. You know, actions, consequences. It's like we got a generation of young people who have absolutely no reasoning skills, and unfortunately, this young lady is, for want of a better word, not want to sound callous, part of that collateral damage. That is what's happening, you know, and it's sad, and you know, it really is sad. These boys are all out of a little gang called the Gas Gang, and we know about them because they're like Brixton-based boys, you know. And some of the boys that I know who were affiliated with the Gas Gang said to me, you know, that's my family. My family is the Gas Gang. Yeah. And you think...
Did they say anything about these three men and what they did?
No, this is before.
Right.
Because the Gas Gang that they were part of, this gang was, you know, in the last couple of years was making moves in South London, especially around Brixton, you know, really building a reputation. And I was saying to some of the guys a couple of years ago, why are you part of this thing? That's my family. And you think, well, have our family structures as black people broken down to the point where our young men will want to embrace some kind of dysfunctional
Well, hold that thought.
lifestyle?
Very important question, because we'll return to that a little bit later in the program when we discuss your film. Barack Obama versus Mitt Romney and the campaigns. And you've been looking at, is it the Sunday Times, a high-tech
Sunday Times, the high-tech campaign for Barack. Yes, I can. Obama's high-tech vote grab. You know, and I like the term.
Separate websites for Jews and even pet lovers.
And even Kool-Aid drinkers.
Right, okay.
Kool-Aid drinkers, no, I'm joking. I'm being facetious. But you, personally, you've got to be drinking Kool-Aid to fall for some of this stuff here.
Really, why?
The words respect, empower, include and win are emblazoned above the entrance to Barack's campaign headquarters. Like, come on, man. 4 years ago, we drank the Kool-Aid, you know, and we fell for it. I was out in the States when Barack got elected back in November 2008. I was filming, and it was incredible, you know. What this man had created in 2008 was just, it was, the world shifted.
And are you saying 4 years later the Kool-Aid has gone flat?
4 years later, people have said, okay, yes, we can, change we can believe in. What's happened? What have you done? And all he's done, you know, what people look at is that they will see the bailout for the Wall Street banksters who got us into this position in the first place. We'll look and we'll see people like Timothy Geithner, you know, his Treasury Secretary, who he gave orders to carry out certain policies, and Geithner refused. At that point there, Barack should have been like, listen, I'm the head NI in charge. See you later. And he didn't do it. So you're like, okay, so where is, to quote Mr. Louis Farrakhan, your testicular fortitude to deliver on some of that stuff that we voted for? And he hasn't delivered, so they've now taken the campaign virtual.
So you're saying high-tech or no high-tech, you're not buying it this time. Okay, thanks very much for that pay-per-view, guys. We'll have much more in store for you right after this short break.